This is the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota. Welcome to the show, everybody. No matter where you are, thank you for joining us. Whether you're online in Africa, Europe, Germany, Ireland, thank you for joining us. So if you need help with your personal finances, I'm your guy. I know that summertime is here, or officially not here, but it's hot. You know what I'm saying? At least where I am, it's hot. So people are taking vacations, and I'm wondering, if people spend more time planning a vacation than they spend on managing their coins? Ooh, I know. But make sure you spend time this summer managing your finances. Don't ever go on vacation with your finances, meaning stop managing them. It's a year-round event. You need to do it every single month. So make sure you do your money plan or budget so you can stay on task with your finances. Go to dakotagready.com for resources about how to manage your coins. And if you have a business, specifically a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, or a nursepreneur, and you need help with your accounting and taxes, I got you covered there too. Go to dakotagready.com to get resources about how to manage your finances in your business. So today's guest is Ms. Christian Sear of hold on, I'll make sure I got this right. Hold on, Christian, because I know it's like, hold on, let me make sure I say it right. A life of living abundantly, right?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
I followed on that one because I knew that it was a challenging word to say, but a life of living abundantly. And actually, Christine was a friend of mine I met maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I lived in Tennessee. She was actually my mentor through a program. So, Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So, tell everyone about who you are and what you do, Christian.
Thank you. That is like a loaded question. When people ask me that, I just simply sometimes say, I'm in counseling. So I am 17 years in the counseling and mental health field, where I have a private practice called Serenity Counseling and Mediation Center. And it is a counseling center that also has holistic components such as yoga, meditation, spa, and also massage therapy. In addition to that, the core of what I do is that I help families through the court system through a high conflict program that I've created, through a certification in conflict resolution that I received in 2015 to kind of stack with my master's in counseling. So, like professionally, I am marriage and family therapist and coach, and I am also a family and civil mediator. And
So
I
you
also podcast host now.
right. So you help people with civil, I guess, with marriage problems, right? In a
Yeah,
nutshell, and then
yes,
you
that
help
are
them
going
to
through
get
court.
no. So is it we're going with divorce or what?
The majority of what I do is that I have the experience and I can actually do a full divorce. So we do the parenting class here that's required in the state of Tennessee. And then I actually draft, which is the marital dissolution agreement. And because I'm not an officer of the court, meaning I don't have a law degree, I partner with a couple of lawyers, one in Nashville and then one here locally in my county, where they are officers so they can actually turn in the paperwork for a small fee. And yeah, they submit everything in the state of Tennessee with children. It's 90 days, without children, 30 days, and you are divorced.
Wow. So how'd you get into counseling? I mean, because it sounds like you went to school for, is it like family and family? Was it? I know I was like, when I went to school in Kentucky, there was a family and family studies program, something like that. Something to that, right?
Mhm. Yes. So my mother actually was taking her master's program in counseling when I was in high school, and I was flipping through all of her books. I was actually going into my freshman year a college at WKU as pre-law. And all of my senior prep was the judicial process. I was in like the junior attorney programs, all of that, the criminal justice program. So I was going to be a lawyer. And that's where I feel like my mediation stuff kind of ties in. And then I had took psychology 101 my freshman year. And I said, you know what? This is where I love it. And I love exploring it. And it's never ending. So that's how I got into it. And then I had a minor in sociology and mental health in undergrad.
Awesome. So I took one class in sociology, and it's very important. I mean, like to understand people. This word is basically about understanding people, how to relate.
Mm.
Cool. So what? So it was interest in people, or what drew you to the information to become a social worker, or I guess because you're doing social work in a nutshell, right?
Social work is typically like in the hospital systems, which is I used to work for HCA for, over a long period of time, 7 years inpatient, but more so just counseling. Social work has a different designation and licensure and degrees and all that other good stuff. So just mainly counseling,
Got
which
you.
is ours is systemic, which is we get to the root of things. So as a child, to answer your question, you always wonder, like, why is my family like this? Like, my family's dysfunctional. I'm gonna write a book about my family. And that's what really started it all.
So you went from wanting to be a lawyer to wanting to be a counselor. Now, specifically a marriage counselor, or
Yes, specifically marriage and family therapy isn't my actual specialty.
so why marriage?
I love marriage. Like, I am one of those people, like, I always admired my parents, my aunts and uncles, and they had their dysfunctions. And I'm one of those people where I'm always looking like I'm a researcher. My nickname as a child was not just Lola, it was Nosy. Um, and I love the partnership that I experienced watching grow up. Most of my aunts and uncles, were married, 30 and 40 and 50 years. My parents, very solid relationship. Like, I look at my parents and I'm just like, y'all are really soulmates. And don't get me wrong, I'm not selling an illusion. They are the real deal who have been in it, through it, under it, over it. And I believe in marriage and what the Bible says, and in partnership. Everything that I have to offer, like, it doesn't stop there. Like, I will be 10 times who I am today with the right partner, and vice versa for him. It is a partnership, it is a flow. After being divorced and going through this healing process, like, I truly know now what marriage is about. And love is not enough. I'm going in, you got to be in love, of course, but love is not enough. It is a commitment level, it is dedication. Is, do we have the same work ethic, and they have to be a father. They have to be a father, um, in order to get a very huge dynamic piece of what marriage is to me and why it's important. Because having that marital component for my children, even though it's a blended family, is still very important to me.
Mm. I've been married for 15 years now, and I tell people that I can contribute that to three things: Jesus,
Mm,
communication, and budgeting. If you
mhm,
got Jesus in your life, which is the foundation of our value system, you know what I'm saying, my wife and me,
mhm.
it helps us. It helps to have Jesus because I'm crazy, she's crazy, and we both crazy together.
Exactly.
So it's good to have Jesus in the midst of craziness. Secondly, communication. They say that I guess that I've heard that men talk less than women. Well, our relationship, we talk, we both talk. But for a
Mhm,
guy, I mean, I always like to be open in communication with my wife because it's important for us
mhm.
to talk about things. Because if we don't discuss things, it, if we just hold it all in, it one day we just explode and spew.
First.
It's like, why didn't we talk about this before? We could have resolved this along the process by talking. So
Mhm.
communication is important. And third, money. Get on the same page with your spouse regarding finance, because I know that money is one reason why people get a divorce. Talk about that part, Christian.
Okay, so the biblical part, without being said, absolutely is Christ is the head of my life, and I have abandoned all the thoughts and myths of religion. Like, I have the ultimate spiritual relationship with God, and understanding now what marriage is supposed to be, and how He's designed it. So I wanted to recap on that, and you wanted me to answer about
About
money.
yeah, because I assure you, your field is money one reason why people get divorced that you've seen. Of course, if your history of being in your field.
Yes, money is the number one.
Mm,
So I can speak from this perspective. Going back into it again, remember I talked about like that work ethic. It won't, if we're aligned in that work ethic where we have an agreement that you're going to work outside the home, I'm going to work inside the home. Your salary outside the home, if it's 200,000, you better believe that my salary is matched 200,000 working inside the home, you know. But what that traditional saying, a man is to provide, protect, and profess. And in that, we can both be, whether I'm in the home or outside of the home, matching a salary, not matching a salary, you know, finances, unfortunately, like people have got to look into it. It is extremely important because you have got to have money goals. You can have someone who frivolously spends money. You can have someone who, you know, I love a nice house. Let's say I want a $500,000 house, but we don't have car notes, or he wants a $150,000 house and we travel the world. Like, where is that balance, you know, in choosing a lifestyle and having a budget of what money means to you, how long we want to work, what is our investments going to look like, what is our 401, how are we going to retire? So it is a conversation that people are very superficially or on the surface having a conversation about, but they're not getting into the nitty gritty about God and money, you know.
Mm.
And it is that we're so conditioned. Remember that family dysfunction to, well, all rich people are greedy or they're mean. Well, I want to be greedy and mean then. We all know as Christians that that's not at all how God has designed life for us. He has designed a life for us to live more abundantly, as long as we are following his principles. So being in that soul partnership, from what I'm speaking of, not necessarily an individual, like having that purpose in life, that what we're working for, working towards, and our kingdom, you know, we're going to be kingdom partners where it's going to align, and we're going to work hard together to, you know, bring God in everything we have. And the money will follow, you know, your gifts will make room for you, no matter what room you walk in. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that money part, that component is important. Well, the faith is too, the money. Talk about how important communication is in a marriage.
Communication, I'd rather see people over communicate than to not communicate. I was an over communicator, and in my marriage, and when you find yourself apologizing, well, I'm sorry to bring this up, or you're tiptoeing about something, I don't, now that I look back on it, it's just like, why? You know, is it because that other person don't want to hear it, or you don't want to talk about it? Money should not be controversial. If you guys
Mm.
can come up with similar goals, communication, about sex. Like, you have to be able to communicate children, finances, houses, schools, just life. So you cannot have, you know, a relationship where there's no communication, because there's a breakdown. There will be a breakdown somewhere, and then it won't be worth communicating. And then it breaks down dinner time. It breaks down sleeping together. It breaks down not going places together. Then you don't want to date, because if you're not communicating, you're avoiding something. And why are you
Mm.
avoiding? You know, so
I have, yeah, I mean, you're right about that. You got to communicate. Actually, a friend of mine said that her and her husband have basically a separate account for the money. She said, we don't argue about money. I mean, because it's his money and my money. I'm like, before I got married, my wife Bishop said, all money is household money. There's no her money, his money is our money. I'm like, ooh, I like that, because one guy told me, he said he had some hide money, HIDE money. He had money from his wife. I guess she had some kind of problem with spending. Talk about how important it is to talk about, to have transparency in finances or in life general. In general.
I would say 100% transparency. No matter how you decide to divvy up who has an account, there should always still be one main account where all the money goes, even if it's his paycheck, your paycheck. And I can say in you know, when I was married, that was 100% transparent. Whether it wasn't enough, you know, and that was the problem. So there was a main checking account. You know, no matter what, it's more so who's going to be assigned to paying these household tasks, who are the best at it, where I'm good at that, then you can offset something else that I'm not even going to try and be in your lane. So from that one account, both checks are deposited from that main account where everybody has access to in the marriage. You get your account where we can now delegate some money for you to go. You don't have to hide anything. That is your money. And then I can have my personal account. Everything is auto drafted from my marital account. And then I have my money, you know, and I don't have to question anything that you're doing. I don't have to question what you're doing with your money. And I need you to simply not care. Like I don't want to care, you know? And a lot of that is just security and getting in these relationships and why are you hiding money, bro? You know? and having that communication with your wife to say, this isn't working. Because part of commitment is we're going to have this conversation. It's going to be a hard conversation. We're going to make some action, some changes, and we're going to roll on. But I desire you to stop, you know, abusing our money. So communication about, you know, money and accounts, like honestly, if you can make it one, let it be done.
Mm. Yeah, so we have multiple accounts, but we're on you know, each of our accounts.
Each
There's
other.
personal and business. That way, if something happens to me, she has access to it, and vice versa. You don't need to hide anything. It's like it's all God's money anyway. So why am I having to hide something that doesn't belong to me?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
A new thing that I've been introduced to is both of us have, you know, businesses, tithing personally and then tithing your business money. I just went to a women's conference and I was just like guilty. So
All right.
like,
So for me, like I tithe on my business income. So I do gross. Any money that come in from my business, I tithe on that. And
okay,
then my wife, when she works, basically she should be doing the same thing on her income from my job. She tithe on that too.
okay,
That way, we both tithe on what she makes and what I make, but it's all combined. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it's good to have that business income being tied too.
yeah, yeah, okay.
Cool, cool. So, talk about your experience in terms of how do you share being a marriage counselor yet having been divorced? Talk about that. Is there like some
Mm.
kind of conflict of interest, or how does one say, "All right, I'm going to go to someone who was married before, but now they aren't"? Talk about your experience being married and now why you aren't married and how you
Yeah.
share it with your clients.
Um, first of all, my divorce was very public, but I first I want to say that my experience, I have more years being a marriage and family counselor married than I do not married.
Mm,
And one
mm,
thing that I can tell you that made me so efficient in what I did, because I just shared with you, I love marriage. I understand and love what it stands for, and being in a committed relationship. Like you got that one person in this whole world, no matter what, like is legitimately and ethically and legally your ride or die. I don't like how they're saying I'm a ride or die. Like legitimately and ethically, I know that person is in my life to every time I see their face. They are home to me, you know. So that experience, I believe professionally and just how I feel about marriage was amazing. And your work speaks for itself. So now when people are coming to me, you know, it's on my websites. It's they call and they vet like none other. And a lot of times people are like, well, I'd like to see the CEO. And you know, my receptionist will be like, have you read her profile? Because I do like for people to know like I'm an intensive counselor, or I do intensive marital coaching. So they're kind of already coming to someone from a Christian perspective, like, how can you get me through this if you've not had a storm in your life?
right.
So divorce has made me on my game. It is the best thing that's ever happened to me professionally and personally, because yeah, I have a testimony. I can relate. I understand. But at the same time, you're coming to someone who's not bitter, and I still want people to fight for their marriages. And when they're coming to me, and they bring the God aspect into it, I'm so relieved, because it is getting harder and harder for me not to teach or counsel or coach from those foundations, because um like that stigma of being divorced, it is so hard, especially in the town, where we used to live. And it's just, you're a married little unit, and everybody, and it's doted on, and you go to church, and and so now it's like me and my crew, like it, our girls are some amazing little girls, and they are so fun. And after that initial year, I don't have that stigma anymore, professionally or personally. Just wherever me and those girls go, we are like a crew. We are a unit, and we have fun together, and we have understand this is our new family unit, and we like it and we love it. But it has definitely taken me professionally to an ultimate new challenge, especially with the high conflict stuff in the courts.
Talk about how important commitment is, because my pastor, well, my wife's bishop said that sometimes you may not like your spouse, but what keeps the marriage
Yes.
together is commitment. Talk about that. You opened that with that earlier. Talk about commitment.
So, commitment. You want to start with, first of all, I have to come from the perspective of where's my commitment to God, and believing that God has taken these two people to be committed to one another. So my commitment to my spouse is no. My commitment to God is number one, and understanding how God designed this marriage, wants from this marriage, and the lessons that you're supposed to learn in this marriage are also something that happens. Um, and then with that commitment, and making sure that my spouse doesn't supersede my commitment with God first, helps me be able to see and understand transparently the person that I am with. I could marry Joe right here, and as long as Joe truly has a spiritual relationship with God, and we are aligned in some sort of purpose, we're going to ride this out, because we are committed and understand the purpose as to what God has put us on this planet to do. So that commitment to God, and then that commitment to your partner, like knowing God gives you patience to give you. You're not gonna like your partner all the time. I don't even understand. Hey, guess what? My kids don't like me all the time. True confession. Do yours? Does your wife? No. Like that's not even being transparent. It's not even being real. So a love and committed relationship has nothing to do with always liking, your partner. So you are committed to the journey. You are committed to the ups and downs, because you realize in this committed journey, when you come out on the other side, so much stronger.
Right.
So stronger.
And I believe that when people commit to each other, first they commit to God, like you mentioned. I like to say God, wife, kids, and then everybody else.
Everybody
Because
else.
I know some people may put the children above God or the spouse above God, and they forget about God one, then a spouse. And then when they get married or when the kids get old and grown, they have put those two, either God or the spouse or the kids above God, and then they lose relationship with God and then lose relationship with their spouse, because all the attention is on the children, activities, raising them, going to events,
Yes.
and then the emptiness, and the people fall apart because there's no relationship anymore. Real quick, talk about that real quick before we leave.
Talk about what again?
I'll talk about that, just how people do that. They put other things in place of like God, or they put their children above God, they put the children above their spouse. Talk about that.
Right. Um, Sometimes, it is inevitable to live this life without some sort of hardship, heartache, heartbreak, hard time. And the point is when you go through that, is that you learn from that. And one thing that I have learned that I will never be out of that hierarchy is I don't ever want to make another choice outside of God's will.
Mm.
Being that committed to God and saying every step, every walk, even in my free will, I do not ever want to be outside of God's will, because it is painful.
Mm.
And so understanding exactly what it is, and I can't speak for everybody, but pray for that transparency, pray for that hierarchy and how you see things, keeping God first, because everyone has different circumstances and situations as to why people have put their children before their spouses.
Mm.
So that's why I tread lightly on that, because you've got a lot of generational stuff that goes on and how daddy's mama and raised him, and and in my perspective, it is so important that anyone transitioning understands that their relationship with God has to be key, and commitment and liking and loving and all those things. So someone has to come in with a very strong spiritual base to understand God is number one. God aligns us in our purpose. God aligns us for these children, and God aligns us to understand that I may have to take my spouse's lead on his children. He may have
Mm.
to take my lead with my children, but we together are committed to raising this family. So the
Mm.
hierarchy is still God, structural, which is it's not happening out without man and woman, provider and nurturer. So that's another thing why I speak 50-50. A man as a provider, he encompasses everything that me as a nurturer does that he naturally can't do. And I naturally can't go and bench press 200 pounds. I don't want to. And anyhow, but making sure that that foundation is there, and understanding what is best and what you commit to, that is important, because a lot of times women especially, they put their children number one, and when their children are gone, they have absolutely nothing to look to in their spouse. They have no friendship, they have no commitment, they have no sex life, they have no travel, they have no general conversation, they don't even talk to each other. And
Mm.
then that's where your divorce rate increases. And you did it all for the children when you could have been apart, being just as happy, and your kids could have been happier not watching you not exist together. Because
Mm.
I have enjoyed watching my parents and my aunts and uncles grow together and be committed to each other. So I don't want to speak for everyone. That hierarchy is super important. Understanding that there has to be a head, and putting those children definitely in the equation. But children lead, and it's just the two of you, and you want to make sure that you are still carrying out why you came together and how you're gonna leave together.
That's awesome, Christian. How can we find out more about you online, social media, and your website?
Yes. My website is lifeoflivingabundantly.com. If you're wanting to schedule a coaching appointment, you can schedule it at serenitycounselingtn.com. On social media, such as YouTube, I'm lifeoflivingabundantly.com, and Twitter, TikTok, and also Instagram is Life of Living Abundantly.
Christian, thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
joining on
you.
the podcast. You're welcome.